to make money, you need to be closer to 90 cents, maybe 80 cents would be nice.
Hi, once again, everybody. Welcome back to the Comstock channel. I'm Marlin Bohling with you. Well, today is Tuesday, and it happens to be a report day from USDA. We did get our February edition of the WASDE report, and it came out at 11 o'clock Central Time today. Here to talk about it, I have the president of Comstock Investments, Matthew Kruse, with us, and he's going to help navigate us through the numbers. And then also what's going on in South America these days. So we'll kind of discuss all of it in today's session here. Matthew, thanks for coming on board. Appreciate that. So what caught your attention here on the WASDE report when it came out?
Hey, Marlin. Good morning. So maybe jumping right into the U.S. grain ending stocks, they made our job easy today. They didn't actually make a single change to the corn or soybeans. They made a tiny adjustment to in wheat, where they increased, I think, food usage by 4 million bushels, so pretty minor amount. And so yeah, the ending stocks for corn remained at that 1.54 billion bushels. The trade was looking for a small reduction, and that could be why we started the morning trading up. I think we were up 4 or 5 cents in the corn and up maybe 7 cents in the beans, and now we're trading negative. So we'll see where the close ends up. But the trade was looking for a little bit of a cut to the ending stocks just through increased demand, and we didn't see it today. The USDA left it untouched. And similar situation in the beans. They didn't make any changes in the beans, and they are looking for a very tiny reduction in the AR-US ending stocks. And so not a lot of fireworks. I actually, saw more reason to be optimistic in the global ending stocks, and we'll kind of get to that. But here in the case of Brazil and Argentina crop, I was mostly looking forward to how they were going to treat the crop in Argentina. Our Comstock Report subscribers will probably know that I've been talking about a 45 to 49 million metric ton crop for Argentina soybeans. And so they were actually, last month they're at 52. The average trade was looking for 50, and they came in at 49. So for Argentina's crop, they actually came in below what the average trade was looking for, which I thought was supportive. And so it wasn't really a surprise to me, or shouldn't be to our subscribers. We were kind of been saying for several weeks that we thought that they needed to shave off as much as 4 million metric tons to Argentina's crop. So I think you might see some additional reductions there. In the case of Brazil soybeans, they left that unchanged. That was not a surprise. They did reduce Brazil's corn crop by 1 million metric ton. I think a lot of that just has to do with their first crop of corn, which is being harvested now, is a little bit smaller than some of their initial projections, and so you may see some additional reductions in subsequent reports due to that. So that's kind of what we see there.
Now, I was going to ask you, while we have this particular screen up, where are we in the maturity of the crop in South America? Do you think these numbers are subject to change very much from here on out, or are they pretty much ironclad now at this point?
Well, I wouldn't say they're ironclad by any means. I'm still hoping for some reductions in Brazil's prior crop, which might show up in the world ending stocks. It wouldn't show up in these reports. I think USDA is probably right on with that 169 million metric ton expectation. We see a lot of private estimates above that, but I think they haven't quite taken into consideration some of the losses that we're seeing in the South. That I think there are pockets of areas that have had losses. I've heard up as much as 70%. Now, they're not very large areas, but they're still gonna, I think, take the top off of that crop. And so I saw a private estimate someone sent me last week. It was the first time I saw someone came in under the USDA at 168, and so I'm okay with USDA's estimate at that 169 right now. If anything, I think their corn crop has room to move lower. They're still quite a bit above what CONAB is at for their corn estimates, and so it wouldn't surprise me if they have to reduce that by 5 million metric tons lower on their corn output. I think CONAB is just under 120, and they were at 127, just reduced to 126. And so I can see, considering how their first crop of corn was kind of a disappointment, I think they probably lost as much as 15 to 20% of the first crop, which that right there, you're talking close to 5 million metric tons. And it's still early. We have to see how the second crop of corn grows. That's the most important. If they get a lot of rain in April, they could produce a little bit better. So it's still kind of early.
Well, looking at the world ending stocks here, you referred to that a moment ago. And, on the surface, you look at it and all the numbers were below the trade estimates. And yet the market didn't seem to respond to that after these numbers came out. Maybe you can explain what's going on here.
I'll try to. I don't know. This is what got me most excited. And I know the trade usually focuses more, gives more weight or influence to the U.S. ending stocks. But you look at the case of the soybean stocks, it came in at 124.3. Well, that was below what the lowest end of the range was at 126. And so what that tells me is, hey, demand is strong. We are burning through these global stocks of soybeans a little bit more than what was previously thought. And I think you could say the same thing for corn, maybe just not quite as much, but they were below what the average trade estimate was. It was towards the bottom end of the range. And so demand is strong. I think Ukraine and perhaps Argentina are not very reliable suppliers right now. We know Brazil is going to have less corn to export this year than what they had previously. And so the main, I suppose, residual supplier is the United States. And so I think that's good news. We're not saying that we're not going to go to the moon, but I would have called today's report neutral to slightly positive based off of what we see here. And we started the day trading higher and then traded lower, and now we're slightly lower, down a penny or two in both corn and soybeans right now.
So I thought that was interesting. If you have what I considered as well kind of a friendly report, doesn't that make you nervous if the markets can't hold the levels that they were at and they start sliding on bullish news?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it definitely does. What's that old adage, right? That you got to constantly be feeding the bull, to maintain these levels. And so, I think the market was still looking for more positive news, looking for additional cuts in USDA ending stocks, and it didn't get it. And I think that's why it is kind of disappointing right now.
Well, all right. So the numbers are out, and as we can tell, the market kind of yawned at the numbers once they were released. You also had some information for us about South America and its crop production and their supplies, how they stand. What else have you got for us here?
I have some harvest information, and this is probably more specifically as it pertains to Mato Grosso. We usually use this information from EMEA, which is basically a state-sponsored ag association in Mato Grosso, and they provide a lot of good information. It's just showing the progress that they're at and with harvest. So they're through February 7th, they were at 28% complete with the soybean harvest, and that's about 11% below what the 5-year average has been. Now, this is just Mato Grosso, right? The overall Brazil harvest is not quite as far behind. They're probably about 5% overall behind. But if you do kind of see that the pace, to me, what I looked at from last week to this week is picking up. And a lot of it has to do with it's starting to dry out a little bit this week and last week, this week as well, and the forecast that we'll talk about. And so I think you're going to see the pace pick up, and it's possible here by the end of February, they will have caught up to the average. And so which makes sense where, the planting started out delayed, but then caught up towards the end.
So if you can't make out what's on the screen, that would explain it. This happens to be in Portuguese, I would imagine,
Yeah.
the native language for Brazil. You had a similar slide as well, I believe.
Yeah, so they're in the thick of it right now. This is in Mato Grosso. This is their busiest time of the year where they're harvesting and planting simultaneously. And so they had that they were at 28% done with the soybean harvest, and this says as February 7th, they're 23% done with their corn planting, the second crop corn. And so the planters are moving along right behind those the combines, and so they could have a lot of operations going on, be spreading fertilizer and be applying herbicide.
So you mentioned this is the planting pace for the corn. Does there tend to be a variation from year to year in the planting pace of the Safrina corn crop? Does it matter a whole lot or not?
There can be, for sure. A lot of it honestly depends on when they get the soybean crop started and get that planted. And if you go back and look at some of our earlier Comstock reports back in October, we would have told you that some of the delayed planting in the soybeans wasn't going to affect the soybeans so much. It was going to affect the corn crop that followed, just because if they're planting 2 weeks or a month later, the soybeans, that means they're going to be planting less corn. They're going to be planting the corn that much later, which runs out of time and could reduce its yield, or they even just cut acres to compensate. And so, yeah, it does make a difference. It's a very narrow window where 10 days can make a lot of difference.
All right. So with that being said, how is the weather cooperating in South America right now?
Well, this is a 2-week forecast, and it does kind of show where we're flip-flopping now, where we were getting heavy rains to the north and kind of dry weather in the south, and now it's the opposite, where it's showing in some areas up to 10 inches. There in Rio Grande do Sul in the south, looks like Paraguay and parts of northern Argentina. And so, it's good news for the south that they've been needing some drought-breaking rain, but I think some of the damage has been done there. Now this will probably stop it from getting worse, but I think kind of showing that a drying pattern is starting to take effect. Now they're getting some showers, but more like a lot of areas, half of Mato Grosso, an inch or less in the next 10 days, which in Mato Grosso, that doesn't go very far. And so what that basically means is that the skies are going to clear, harvest pace is going to pick up big time, as will the second crop planting.
That wouldn't mean an early start to the dry season, would it?
No, looking out ahead, I didn't have a chart, but looking out ahead, it looks like March is still showing some solid rainfall. Of course, that's, maybe not quite as accurate just because it's several weeks away yet. But and this kind of shows a weather anomaly, 15-day weather anomaly, just confirming what the other graph that we talked about, that we're seeing an above average rainfall there in the southern part of Brazil and on into Argentina, and then kind of drying out. And so I would think it's a love-hate thing, right? Like you need it to dry out to get the soybean crop out and get the corn crop in, but you also, some of the later planted beans still need some rain to fill those top pods. And then, of course, once you get planted, well, then you want it to rain to help the corn germinate. And so at the moment, this is probably a good thing just to get them caught up on harvest and accelerate the planting for them. But eventually they're going to, in 10 days or so, they're going to want the rain to come back. And so I think that's what we're seeing in March, that we'll see the precipitation return.
Well, let's see what else we have on Matthew's slide deck this week. Here we go. Here's another slide related to Safrina corn. If I'm looking at this right, if you scroll down toward the bottom of that list, I'm not seeing a whole lot of profit this year.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was trying to show. What is the profitability for that second crop corn?
Wow.
In Mato Grosso right now? And this is that Farmer Association IMEA produced these numbers. I kind of converted it to US dollars, and so you could kind of see, first you could see what's it cost to plant that second crop corn. Well, it's under $430, and so that sounds pretty attractive, right? Where in my farm in Iowa, it's more like $1,000 an acre with rent and everything included. And however, their crop yields are, maybe half of what we would expect here in Iowa. And so, the state average, I think, for Mato Grosso is like 104 bushels per acre is what they're projecting just in that state. And so it takes an average cash price of 412 a bushel just to break even. Now, at this moment, spot prices are a little bit above that at 430, but no one has any corn, and that's why the prices are elevated. But I think what happens time and time again, once you get into harvest glut and the supply hits the market, you're going to see prices plummet, and so you're more than likely going to see the cash prices drop below that 412. And so it's not easy anywhere. So that cheap cost production looks interesting at first, but you're only getting half a yield at 104 bushels per acre. Now this is based off of probably a higher cost production with more fertility, and so these producers get 110, 120 bushels per acre. There are fields that get more than that, but some of your later planted fields might get 70 bushels per acre, and so we're talking averages here. And so that's what those metrics look like. Probably not a whole lot different than what they are in Iowa for next season. So it's just a different way to farm and different expectations.
So just like here, doing a year's work basically on a razor's edge, and just hoping to get a little bit of a reward when it's all said and done.
You got to produce well and market well, to be able to make it work.
Now, here's something we don't talk about a whole lot. They do have a lot of cotton production in Brazil, and it seems to be increasing too, right?
Yeah. So the reason I brought this up is Brazil has actually surpassed the United States in cotton production in 2023 for the first time ever. And looking out here into 2024 and 2025, that gap looks to kind of continue here. And so, they're projecting closer to 17 million bales. And in the WASDE report that came out today, they kept U.S. production at 14.4. I think the ending stocks for U.S. ending stocks for cotton, they increased to 4.9 from 4.8 million bushels. And so cotton prices are not doing good right now. They're languishing. They're below the cost of production. You've been seeing a gradual reduction in cotton acres just because of that. It costs a lot to produce cotton, even more than corn. And so, but Brazil, like the soybean market gets most of the attention, I suppose, but the cotton market has been slowly taking the U.S. market share away. And I think Brazil is now the third largest cotton producer in the world, behind China and India. But China and India, I think, are still the net importers of cotton, whereas Brazil is a net exporter. And so the other reason it's important is because we talk about the second crop of corn following soybeans. Well, there's actually a lot of cotton producers planting second crop of cotton, and that gives farmers their third option. And similar scenario, they're rushing to get that crop in, and they try to even start it 10 days or 2 weeks earlier than the cotton. And so it's and that's going in right now, where Mato Grosso is I think represents 70% of Brazil's cotton output. And so it's very important production state, and a lot of that crop is going in right now.
Given the prices that we have here in the U.S. on the board right now, I mean, you can't really make any money growing cotton in the U.S., at least the way things are structured right now, can you?
I don't think so. I think we're up a little bit today. Let me pull it up here, but yeah, we're at 67 cents in the March contract, and I've been told, like, to make money you need to be closer to 90 cents, maybe 80 cents would be nice right now, but the cost of production continues to rise. A lot of the price, I think, depends a lot on what China's buying, and China has historically been, our number one customer for cotton exports, and of course, the tariff talk and our difficult trade relationship with China, the way it's affected the grain market is affecting the cotton market as well, and so, it's it's corn, soybeans, wheat, and then cotton is a distant fourth place. I think they're planting like 11 million acres, and if nothing changes here anytime soon, we're hoping for a rally just because we think prices are depressed and below the cost of production. But if nothing changes, I think you're going to see a further reduction in cotton acres. And then where do those acres go? Where do they get planted to? And I would, they got several different options, but I would guess a lot of it's going to go to corn. So,
and that's all we need is more corn acres on top of the already larger corn acreage estimate that we're looking at now.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it would be nothing to find another 1 or 2 million acres just in the South being rotated from cotton.
So with all this combined, I mean, given the market action we had after this report came out, do you think the markets look like they're up against some pretty stout resistance right now?
Well, you're starting to. I think I was hoping we get more help from demand, and if it is there, we didn't necessarily see that in the WASDE report today, so we didn't get a lot of help from the USDA. My concern here now is we get into the first week of March, and the market's going to start looking at acres, and we're going to start to see a lot of discussion on the acreage report. And I think a lot of people are going to once again lean towards planting more corn. It just, the metrics seem to make more sense. And so I'm concerned that that's going to kind of swamp the market and kind of stemmy any additional rally at this point.
Well, all in all, that means that there's not going to be any shortage of things to talk about on our Family Farm Masterclass coming up here. And gosh, only a little over a week from today. That'll be in Des Moines. That'll be at the Marriott Des Moines downtown. And it's going to be a 2-day conference on the 21st and 22nd. Lots of experts will be talking. Matthew, I know you're going to be there. A lot of the Comstock staff will be there answering questions. Give me a 30-second elevator pitch for the Family Farm Masterclass here.
So the Family Farm Masterclass is an event that we're hosting to kind of help create an educational environment to help professionalize the family farm. And so there's a lot of opportunities to learn about the latest and greatest equipment and technology. And we're going to focus a little bit more on management and succession planning. As farms get larger, they require a new set of management skills, and because they usually require managing more people. And I know we're talking about the great transition where we're, a lot of farmers are getting up there in age, and to maintain these family farms, how do we bring in the next generation and make that work? And it requires a lot of skill and communication. And so that's a big part of it. But we want to talk a lot about entrepreneurship. We have an interesting panel with some social media experts, Rob Sharkey and Zach Johnson, the millennial farmer, and Zoe Kent. And so they're going to talk about how they're kind of generating, off-farm income and their social media business that works on their farm. And of course, our keynote speaker is Willie Robertson, and who's well known from Duck Dynasty, and just talk about the challenges with family dynamics and how that's worked with his experiences.
Well, we're looking forward to it. It should be a great event. Do you have any room if somebody wants to sign up and squeeze in there yet?
Yeah, you can go to comstock.com and just click on the masterclass link at the top, and we got all the information on there.
Excellent. All right. So it'll show the agenda, the list of speakers, where it is. I believe you can even book accommodations through that. Is that right?
Yep.
You can. Okay, excellent. So everything you need to know will be right there. You might want to check it out. All right. Well, Matthew, thanks for all the information. Good stuff today. I appreciate that. Matthew Kruse, president of Comstock Investments, with us. And that'll do it for this episode. For our producer, Breanne Jenkins, I'm Marlin Bohling. Catch you next time right here on the Comstock channel. Futures trading involves risk. The risk of loss in trading futures and or options is substantial, and each investor and or trader must consider whether this is a suitable investment. Past performance is not indicative of future results.